NASA is navigating a critical period as the Artemis 2 mission faces yet another delay, further complicating its ambitious plans for lunar exploration. Adding to the challenges, the appointment of a new administrator signals a pivotal shift for the United States' leading space agency, one that could redefine its trajectory in the coming years. In today's episode of Alpha Tech, we dive into the factors behind the Artemis 2 mission delays and examine whether the change in leadership at NASA holds the key to overcoming the persistent obstacles hindering this historic lunar mission. Less than a year after revealing significant delays for the next two Artemis lunar missions, NASA officials announced on Thursday that the timeline has been pushed back once more. The first crewed mission to orbit the moon is now targeted for April 2026, with the inaugural lunar landing anticipated in mid-2027. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson explained that the delay is necessary to revise the Orion spacecraft's reentry trajectory to reduce stress and prevent unexpected damage to the heat shield, as observed during the uncrewed test flight last year. Additionally, extended testing of the spacecraft's environmental control and life support systems needs to be completed. Based on the data, we have decided unanimously among our decision makers to move forward with the current Artemis 2 Orion capsule and heat shield with a modified entry trajectory that lessens the heat coming back into Earth's atmosphere, Nelson stated. Additionally, we need to complete our updates to the Orion environmental controls and life support systems that were identified earlier this year. Future heat shields for the Artemis 3 moon landing mission and subsequent flights will essentially use the same materials, but with modifications to improve their performance during re-entry. In the meantime, Nelson said, we are planning for Artemis 2 to launch in April 2026, and we're going to do all in our power with our commercial partners to launch earlier. The Artemis program aims to send astronauts to the moon's south polar region, where ice deposits may allow crews to one day extract oxygen and hydrogen to produce air, water, and rocket propellants. This would eliminate the need to carry these resources from Earth at great expense. Following the launch of Artemis 2, Nelson emphasized that NASA will make any necessary adjustments and plans to launch Artemis 3, the first lunar landing in over half a century, in mid-2027, assuming the SpaceX lander is ready. We plan to launch Artemis 3 in mid-2027, which will be well ahead of the Chinese government's announced intention of sending taikonauts to the moon in 2030, Nelson added. We need to get the Artemis 2 test flight right to ensure the success of our return to the moon. NASA launched the Artemis program's first test flight, Artemis 1, in 2022 using the agency's SLS rocket to send an unpiloted Lockheed Martin-built Orion capsule on a looping flight around the moon and back. NASA initially planned to launch the Artemis 2 mission at the end of this year to carry a 3-man, 1-woman crew around the moon to thoroughly test the spacecraft's life support, propulsion, and other systems. But after the Artemis 1 flight, engineers discovered that the Orion capsule's 16-foot-wide heat shield suffered unexpected damage during its high-speed return from the moon, using a technique called skip entry. In a skip entry maneuver, the capsule briefly dips into Earth's atmosphere to slow down, then rises back out before re-entering for its final descent. This technique is akin to a flat rock skipping across a calm pond and offers advantages such as increasing the range of potential splashdown sites. Orion's heat shield is designed to ablate or burn away during re-entry. As the spacecraft plunges into Earth's atmosphere at speeds exceeding 25,000 miles an hour, the charred material is intended to remain intact, forming a protective insulating layer. However, during Artemis 1's re-entry, more of this charred material detached from the heat shield than predicted by computer models. Although this unexpected material loss didn't affect the spacecraft, NASA noted that any onboard astronauts would not have noticed the issue. Still, it raised questions for engineers tasked with ensuring future safety. They aim to determine the cause and refine computer models to more accurately simulate re-entry effects under varying trajectories. After hundreds of tests and exhaustive analysis, NASA has since determined that, while the capsule was dipping in and out of the atmosphere as part of the planned skip entry, heat accumulated inside the heat shield's outer layer. Pam Melroy, a former shuttle commander and now deputy administrator of NASA, explained that the heat buildup led to gases forming and getting trapped inside the heat shield. This caused internal pressure to build up, which led to cracking and uneven shedding of the outer layer. While the same type of heat shield will be used for the Artemis 2 mission in April 2026, the crew will use a modified re-entry trajectory to reduce the sort of heating that damaged the Artemis 1 heat shield. For future Orion spacecraft, NASA and its prime contractor, Lockheed Martin, plan to implement changes to address the heat shield seepage issue. However, even with this solution, the space agency must prioritize astronaut safety before sending a crew aboard the Orion spacecraft. This represents yet another delay for the Artemis program, which has already faced budget overruns and overly ambitious timelines. On the other hand, a significant event that might alter the current trajectory of the lunar mission is the appointment of a new NASA administrator. On December 4th, President-elect Trump announced his selection of Jared Isaacman, a billionaire entrepreneur and space enthusiast who has flown into orbit twice with SpaceX, as the next administrator of NASA. I'm delighted to nominate Jared Isaacman, an accomplished business leader, philanthropist, pilot, and astronaut, as administrator of NASA, Trump posted on his social media platform, Truth Social. Jared will drive NASA's mission of discovery and inspiration, paving the way for groundbreaking achievements in space science, technology, and exploration. In a post on X, Isaacman said he was honored to receive Trump's nomination. Having been fortunate to see our amazing planet from space, I'm passionate about America leading the most incredible adventure in history, Isaacman wrote. On my last mission to space, my crew and I traveled farther from Earth than anyone in over half a century. I can confidently say this second space age has only just begun. Senior officials who previously served at NASA under Presidents Trump and Obama have also endorsed Isaacman as the next administrator of NASA. Jared Isaacman will be an outstanding NASA administrator and leader of the NASA family, said Jim Bridenstine, who led NASA as administrator during Trump's first term. Jared's vision for pushing boundaries, paired with his proven track record of success in private industry, positions him as the ideal candidate to lead NASA into a bold new era of exploration. I urge the Senate to swiftly confirm him. Lori Garver, NASA's deputy administrator during the Obama presidency, wrote on X that Isaacman's nomination was terrific news, adding, "He has the opportunity to build on NASA's amazing accomplishments to pave our way to an even brighter future." Isaacman's tenure at NASA would involve managing an annual budget of nearly $25 billion, much of which is now allocated to the agency's Artemis program, aimed at getting American astronauts to the moon by the end of the decade. However, with delays mounting and China targeting a manned lunar landing by 2030, the incoming Trump administration may consider revisiting NASA's Artemis architecture. Isaacman, a vocal advocate for the commercial space industry, has been critical of several Artemis-related decisions on X. He has questioned NASA's choice to fund 2 backup lunar landers while failing to develop contingency plans for the SLS rocket. The SLS costs over $2 billion per launch, excluding ground infrastructure and Orion spacecraft expenses, and is completely expendable. None of its components can be reused despite utilizing solid rocket boosters and main engines repurposed from the retired shuttle program. One of Isaacman's potential initial moves could involve phasing out the SLS. Canceling the SLS would require congressional approval, posing challenges due to the rocket's strong bipartisan support in key states like Alabama, where NASA's SLS program is based. Currently, NASA is preparing the second SLS rocket inside the Vehicle Assembly Building at Kennedy for the Artemis 2 mission, slated to fly 4 astronauts around the far side of the moon in the first deep space crewed mission since 1972. Despite its limitations, the SLS and Orion spacecraft are essential for Artemis 2, scheduled for 2026. Beyond that, alternative architectures may be explored under Isaacman and the Trump administration, likely with input from Elon Musk, viewed as a key advisor. These alternatives might include foregoing the upgraded SLS Block 1B, projected to cost nearly $6 billion, according to NASA's Inspector General, or re-evaluating the need for the Lunar Gateway Station in orbit around the moon. Instead, SpaceX's Starship rocket emerges as a promising contender. Designed to eventually transport people and heavy cargo from Earth to the moon and Mars, SpaceX's reusable Starship system offers high-speed launches. SpaceX projects that the cost of launching a ton of cargo on Starship will be 100 times cheaper than the company's Falcon 9. This could make the cost of sending a ton of equipment into space on Starship lower than the price of a Tesla Cybertruck and significantly more affordable than launching the same payload on the SLS. If these changes come to fruition, the new NASA administrator could emerge as a transformative leader, driving strategic shifts to enhance cost efficiency while accelerating advancements in commercial spaceflight. Such an approach has the potential to fundamentally redefine NASA's lunar exploration strategy, paving the way for a new era of innovation and achievement. With the backing of President Trump, Isaac Mann expressed his vision, stating, "I can promise you this. We will never again lose our boldness to journey to the stars and never settle for second place. We'll inspire children for generations to look up and dream of what's possible. Americans will walk on the moon and Mars, and in doing so, we'll make life better here on Earth." That's all for today's episode. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.